to begin? Wonderful. Well, good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission meeting of Wednesday, May 11th and I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Weeks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we please have roll call?
Roll call. Chair Lubicic?
Here.
Vice Chair Maharo?
Here.
Commissioner DeVrent?
Here.
Commissioner Urena?
Here.
Commissioner Weeks?
Here.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and on our online platforms. To prevent any overlaps in comments, each commissioner will be called upon to speak. And we'll begin with public comment, the first item on our agenda. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. If you wish to address the Commission, please fill out a speaker card that is available on the back table. Once completed, kindly submit the card to the recording secretary. Speakers will be called to the podium one by one. Each speaker will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. And I believe that comments can also be emailed to hpcrc-publiccomment@sgch.org. Do we have any public comment for this meeting?
No public comment for this item, Chair.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to the second item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. These are the minutes from the February 16th, 2022 HPCRC meeting. I hope everyone has had a chance to review. As a point of process, do I ask for a motion to approve before opening for discussion? Wonderful. If I could get a motion to approve the comments or the minutes.
Motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Reyna. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Weeks. Are there any comments? I'll start with you, Commissioner
No.
Reyna.
I have I wasn't present at the meeting. Am I allowed to approve these minutes? I was not there on February 16th.
Yes, the approval is to approve to form, but the commission also has the option to abstain
Okay.
if you do not wish to take an action.
Okay.
Vice Chair Maharo, do you have any comments or discussion about the minutes?
No.
Neither do I. So could we do a roll call vote for approval of the minutes?
Roll call vote. Chair Lubicic?
Aye.
Vice Chair Maharo?
Aye.
Commissioner DeVrent?
Aye.
Commissioner Urena?
Aye.
And Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Motion passed. Vote is 5-0.
That brings us to the third item on the agenda, which is the Mills Act. I believe we're going to have a staff presentation.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Item number 3 is to just to provide general information to the commission as well as to the community on the Mills Act contract program, both the state law as well as the city's codes on the program. So generally, the Mills Act was signed into law in 1972. It is a financial incentive program for historic preservation, and it is implemented in the form of a contract between a city or a county and a property owner. and it applies to all properties that are taxable. So not government properties or any property that is not a taxable property. The Mills Act provides incentives for restoring, rehabilitating, and maintaining eligible properties. A property must be historically designated, and the property tax is based on a formula that is determined by the county tax assessor's office. And the tax savings are intended to be used to offset the costs of the work that must be in conformance with the Secretary of Interior standard. The Mills Act contract must run for a minimum term of 10 years and automatically renews after the initial 10 years, unless the contract is terminated either by the city or county or the property owner. The contract runs with the land and transferred to any new property owner when the property is sold, and the property may be periodically inspected to ensure that it stays in compliance with the work that's identified in the contract. The San Gabriel's Mills Act process was adopted in 2001, and there are currently 9 Mills Act contracts. The application process includes completing an application form that's provided by the Community Development Department, providing a restoration, rehabilitation, or maintenance plan, also photos documenting the existing conditions of the property, and the application and contract are subject to the review and approval of the Historic Preservation Commission as well as the City Council. In further detail, again, it includes an application form, the rehabilitation, restoration, maintenance plan, a site plan of the property, photographs of current conditions, the current tax bill for the property, and also a grant deed for the property. The rehabilitation, restoration, and maintenance plan establishes the nexus between the tax saving and historic preservation. It outlines the work items and the time frame expected to complete the work. And some examples of work items include repairing obvious structural damages or deterioration, seismic strengthening, retaining and repairing exteriors such as siding and stucco, and then re-roofing to address leaks. And according to the city's code, the application fee shall be determined by resolution by the City Council, and this was an item that was discussed at a recent council meeting on April 19th. Application fees was proposed for the council to consider, and the fees at fully burdened rate was estimated to be about $5,000 with a $5,000 deposit for the city's architectural historian to review the application as well to confirm that the proposed work is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. After looking at the estimates, the City Council, following some discussion, felt that they wanted to refer the proposed application fees to the Preservation Commission for some additional comments and consideration. And so the recommendation before the commission this evening is to provide feedback on the process, the application, the guidelines, and the proposed fees that were provided as attachments to this report. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions on this presentation? Commissioner DeVrent, let's start with you.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Urena,
No questions at this time.
Vice Chair Moharo.
Yes, thank you, Samantha, for the presentation. Do we currently have any outstanding applicants?
No, there are no outstanding applications at this time.
Okay, and that fee is very recent, correct? That was City Council that?
That's correct.
Okay, I think it's a little steep. I think from a preservation perspective and really the mission of our commission to promote it, to get people to really preserve and restore their homes, I think it would deter from that. I think if with the fee of $5,000, honestly, personally, I mean, aside from everything else you're going to spend in restoring this home, I think that's quite high. And I don't want to discourage residents, you know, and that would very easily discourage residents when you come up upon that and you realize, wow, that's a hefty fee.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Maharo. Commissioner Weeks.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. I have to second the comments on the fee. Backing up, San Gabriel has got so many residential locations that would benefit from this.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Weeks, can you press the button that is to the right? Thank you so
thank
much.
you so much. Okay.
Yes.
Well, the city has so many residential units that could benefit from this. There's so many homes that are built in the 20s and the 30s that need the type of work that is described here. Restoration, roofing, all maintenance items that are for a house that's 100 years old. It's to be expected. So it seems like a great opportunity to be able to offset that with property tax. And again, to get the word out that this opportunity is there is one thing we probably should discuss on how we could make everybody aware in the city that the opportunity is there. And the hurdle, I think, that we would have to overcome would be the fees. I'm not sure. I think that would turn a lot of people off just to get into the program. It's a concern. So it's a great program. We need to advertise it, and maybe we could do something to adjust the fee schedule a little bit to make it a little more enticing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weeks. I also have some questions. I wondered if in terms of the city fee that could be broken out for us, what is contained in that 5,000, 5,060?
Yes, so as mentioned in the presentation, it is based off of a fully burdened rate of taking an application from initial review, making sure that all the required information is submitted as part of the application to deem it complete, and then to prepare the reports to take it before the Preservation Commission as a recommendation, and then to move on to the City Council for their approval of the contract.
So I'm looking at the number of Mills Act properties that we have, and this was established in 2001. So it's been 21 years. We have 9 properties. That's maybe a house every 2 years that's coming through. I'm also concerned about what's being asked of the applicant, and I was wondering, I've been sort of flipping back and forth through my packet, but would it be possible to go back to the slide that had the application process spelled out for us? So I'm assuming if we're looking at these different steps, looking at the form, that looks like something that a property owner can fill out on their own. But when it comes to a rehabilitation, restoration, and maintenance plan, that's something that would require consultation with an expert. Additionally, a site plan seems like that would require architectural expertise. Photographs, does the city accept people taking pictures on their iPhone for photographs?
Yes, as long as it's printed out for documentation.
So I'm looking at sort of what the cost would be. I know that a house historian can charge up to $3,000 to do the proper research on a house. As part of the application, they're going to have to provide a context statement and statement of significance. So it seems that there's a lot of costs already on the property owner when it comes to putting together their application, and that all told, you could find yourself quite easily paying more than $10,000 to put this application together. And that also to me seems like a very high cost to ask a resident to pay for something that I firmly believe ultimately benefits the city. I think maintaining the character of neighborhoods is an attractive program to have. It's what makes people want to come and spend time here. So I'm also concerned about the fee that's being proposed and how we might actually tip this more in favor of a true incentive for residents. I don't know if Commissioner Weeks, you could speak to what it might cost to do a site plan for a residential home.
Well, depending on who you have do it, I think one of the fees here is for a review of by a historical architect, and that's only a review. That's no production of any type of drawing at all.
That is correct. That is to check the information that is submitted to the city for review and then presented during the public meetings.
Okay, so then we would have to add on to this the amounts here, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 for a simplified site plan with setbacks and building outline, square footage, whatever the minimum requirements. So it kind of ups the cost a little bit more. So again, we have to make this attractive so more than 9 people can, and as the chair has mentioned, it would be just a great advantage to our city to have all this restoration and preservation work happen. So that's my over explanation of the architectural site plan fee.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. When it says in the filing requirements a complete legal description, beyond just the significance or being able to establish why the house is eligible from a contextual point of view, the legal description would be calling out any character defining features.
Legal description typically is a description that is probably already available in the grant deed and the property tax information, and ultimately it just defines the property parameters.
Okay, so more of the county assessor's parcel information.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'm still looking at the different costs attached to the steps in this process, and I feel that if there's an area of service, this might be a nice place to lean into that for the residents in terms of the application fee.
So some additional numbers for the commission to consider this evening. Staff did calculate certain percentages of the fully burdened rate. The $5,000 is a 100% cost recovery for staff time. However, if the commission is looking to consider maybe a percentage of that fee, at 20%, for example, the application fee would be at approximately $1,012. At 25, it will be at $1,265. At 30%, it will be at about $1,500. At 35% is about $1,700. And then also, as a point of reference, an application fee that is currently in place, for example, for an initial review for either minor alterations or major alterations to a property that is already designated. A minor alteration review is at about $1,500 currently, and a major alteration review is at $2,900. And then also as another point of reference, for example, a conditional use permit that is reviewed by the Planning Commission is at approximately $2,500. And then a variance application, for example, is about $2,700. So those are existing application fees that the city currently has in place, in considering what percentage may be more appropriate for this application.
So of those different reviews that you've just listed, in terms of hours that it takes to review, because the other side of this that I'm thinking about is, you mentioned that staff would generate a report, But I would guess that the report contains a lot of the material or information that the property owner has compiled. So it would have their site plan that they've paid for. It would have their property description that they've provided. It would have maybe their statement of significance, any architectural details. So when they are providing you with that information, what then is the staff labor in terms of generating the report that's then brought here and onto council?
Right, so then it would summarize, so similar to, say, for example, a staff report that's generated for the Design Review Commission, for example. It would include just summarizing what the application and the project is, summarizing comments that are provided by the architectural historian, findings for why an application is either appropriate and complete and should be supported, and then the recommendation ultimately, so that the report puts all of that information together.
Okay. So in terms of, again, sort of the other fee schedules that you provided to us, a variance, a conditional use permit, a major restoration or project, which do you think comes more closely to the staff hours required for the review of an application like this?
Well,
and I
this
only
is
ask that just because, I apologize for interrupting, that 5,000 is quite different from the other numbers that you cited to us. And so.
yes, so I mean, this is staff's opinion that it would range between the 1,500 to the 2,900. That's currently a fee that's in place for the Preservation Commission's review, but without something going to City Council. So that's why it's only a percentage of the 5,000 that is proposed, which again is for coming before the Preservation Commission and the City Council.
Commissioner DeVrent?
Yeah, so if I was a homeowner and wanted to do something like this, right? I mean, if I was just to do a major or a minor repair or something on my house that require permits, right? That's always kind of the burden. Oh, we got to go get these permits and these plans, right? So if you're trying to incentivize somebody to do the Mills Act in a house that's going to preserve that, what are the way? I would think a way to incentivize somebody would be a smaller fee for the historical review of this, and then maybe in some way, you're still going to have to pay the normal fees that you would for certain permits without this, instead of having this on top of that, might be something that's more in line to that, instead of having to pay all of those fees for regular permits and then this on top of it. So if somebody's doing a Mills Act, right? Am I looking at this right, or does this 5,000 include all? If you're going to go to the Mills Act and go do this, does that include everything that you're going to be doing, or is this on top of all of that?
If staff understands the comment, the understanding is that maybe the subsidy comes potentially from the Preservation Commission review, but then have it be fully burden rate when it goes to City Council, or even a percentage. I mean, if that's how staff understands how the subsidizing will work between the two meetings.
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm saying that if there's an application fee for like if I was somebody here in the city wanted to do that, and I saw $5,000, I'd go, what are you using that for? Right. I'd like to see an itemized way of looking at what's the $5,000. I mean, that would be anything else, because I know that on top of that $5,000, I might have to pay a mechanical permit to get air conditioning or something on top of that, right? And all these other things start piling up on that. So I guess my question is how do you, and these are questions for just like maybe thinking about this a little bit differently, or maybe already are thinking of this and I'm misunderstanding it. I'm not good at numbers unless I see them, right, on paper and how you look at it. But I would think that if you were going to do something like this, the incentive is, yes, we know it costs money to get all of these permits. We want you to do this. How do you offset that instead of that being on top of all of these other ones that you're going to do? That's the incentive, I think, or something like that, right? Or if they meet in the middle, guaranteeing a certain amount of time or a certain price for these things, and if it goes over that, you don't have to do it because you're doing the Mills, you're doing Mills Act, something to that effect. I just don't know how to answer that because I just see $5,000 and I don't know how that's allocated. Right.
Thank you, Commissioner
Mhm.
DeFront. I guess sort of following on that question, my concern would be more that faced with choosing between a major renovation that might alter the character of the house and looking at the Mills Act, as a property owner, I would choose the path of least resistance, and that this to preserve the character of a home does require certain hoops to jump through. So you can't do the more cost-efficient roof. You have to maintain the shake roof or the terracotta. You can't put in acrylic windows. You have to maintain the wooden framed windows. Those are all costly. They require a certain degree of specialization, and all of that begins to de-incentivize the decision to maintain the character of the house when there's disparity between just applying for the permits, knocking something down, and building something new, which is very attractive. And so I think that's really also one of my concerns, that we're saying that there's an incentive, but we're not really making it so with the fee structure that we're attaching. And I would also just echo, I am not a person who sees numbers. So I don't know if there's a way to sort of get a sense of what the fee schedules are for different, sort of the paper that you had read to us from, but that's hard for me to visualize comparatively.
Yeah, it's hard for, I would love to see like a comparison of, okay, we're going to restore, you have a house that's maybe not going to be for the Mills, for the Mills Act, but a house in the city that wants to restore failing stucco, right? What does it cost for the city to review that, or, the permit structure for, for something like that? What would the city require them to do in comparison? Okay, so that would be the first thing, and then maybe what it would be to get an electrical permit, I guess would maybe consider, all of that normal for something that if you're going to restore something, and then to see that in comparison with adding this on top of that. What's an average major project for a home? What would that cost in city permits to do that in reviews, and then see how that compares to this, and see how you balance that off from there. Because I'm with Commissioner Lubicic on this. It's like if you go like, okay, I'm going to pay an extra $5,000 on that, I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to apply for the Mills Act. I would think, first of all, anybody who wants to apply for the Mills Act really has or they really want to preserve their home and do these things. They have a historical background or a foundation that they want to preserve for the city. So there's one incentive on that. So we should incentivize them a little bit more without hitting them with another fee and all of this. So, and I don't know what that is without seeing numbers in front of me to kind of like come up with an idea of what that would be, because I do know that city employees, their time is valuable too, and there needs to be some accounting for that. But if we really wanted to incentivize this, I would love to see how they stack against each other. And I don't know if you have an example of the house here recently that maybe went under these types of things, and what they paid in permits and everything else against something like this. So.
Another factor for the commission to consider is that these are one-time fees for the property tax savings for the duration at minimum of the 10 years. So that's another factor for the commission to consider.
Do you have any sense of what those savings are for a property owner?
No, it's based on a formula that's determined by the assessor's office.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible for a homeowner to understand what these fees are and then get the tax savings from the assessor prior to making a commitment to the Mills Act?
Without having the conversation with the assessor's office on that, we can only guess that a property owner can have the conversation with the assessor's office to get an idea of how the formula, what it's based on.
I think that would help to understand, out-of-pocket expenses.
What staff has seen from the properties that do have outstanding contracts with the city is that their taxes and also the value of their property is almost kept to the same value of when they initially entered into the contract with the city. So for example, if at the time the home was assessed at 360,000, for example, on the assessor's tax website, it shows that that is the rate that the house is currently at.
Okay. And if I could add one more question, kind of picking up on the chair's comment here. For example, on some of these examples, of the contracts we have in the restoration plan, new roof, for example. Original house had clay tile, and they want to re-roof it, and they want to use asphalt shingle. Is there a review process involved for that particular item, so that if they're going to preserve, they're not going to be putting asphalt shingle on the roof?
Yes, Chairperson had briefly mentioned that the rehabilitation, restoration, and maintenance plan would outline all of that as to the work that the property owner will be committing to as part of the contract. It would involve a historian or an architect to first determine what is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standard. And then once that's defined in the plan, then that is what at least staff will forward to the city's preservation architect to confirm that it is consistent with the standards. And within the 10-year period that the property owner would have to follow the plan that's outlined. If at some point there's any revisions or modifications that the property owner is interested in, then that was something that have to be brought back to the city and to bring in all the professional to review the requests.
Okay.
And again, the intent is to maintain that consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards of what's required by the law.
Okay, so all the items would be spelled out relatively clearly at the entrance, when they enter into the contract agreement, and there would be no additional review fees. It's all going to be covered up front.
Correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So as Commissioner Weeks was asking, you were answering, my thought was, if this goes all the way to council and council denies the contract, is there any recovery in terms of cost for the resident?
By the time it gets to a council meeting, then the staff time that has been identified has already been spent. Okay. But staff would hope that if there is something that is lacking in the contract or in the application, that there would be the opportunity for a property owner to address that before it gets to that point.
But they could still get quite far in the process in terms of paying for an architect site plan, restoration plan, paying a fee to be told that it's not a viable application.
At the point when an application and the contract goes before the city council, there would have to be reasons as to why the contract would be denied. But again, it does come before the Preservation Commission first for review and for the recommendation. And that's something that the council would consider as part of their decision making.
So backing that up a little further, if somebody comes in with their application, pays the deposit, and maybe at the stage of the architectural historian reviewing, they say that no, it's not eligible, they still have paid all that out and there's no recouping those costs.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? If it's all right, I'll inquire about public comment. Did we receive any public comment on this item?
No public comment, Chair.
All right. So it is now 7:05 p.m. Time for public comment on this item is now closed. From us, it's just feedback. There's no action for us to take.
That is correct, is to receive comments from the commission as to whether the proposed fee is acceptable or if there are recommendations from the commission as a whole.
All right. If it's all right, I'll run back through the commissioners one by one. Maybe that way we can give a bit more summary in terms of our feedback. So Commissioner Urena, any final comments on this item?
No, no comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner DeBrent?
Yeah, just, to sum up, I would love to see a breakdown of the $5,000 fee at some point, just to kind of see what, just in write from my, just to kind of see how that compares to a restoration program without that $5,000 added on to it as well.
Vice Chair Maharo?
I agree with Commissioner Weeks that we have beautiful neighborhoods in our city. There's plenty of inventory for restoration, and I think it's essential that we do create some sort of incentive. I don't think this cost is an incentive at all. I hope, again, like has just been stated, that we can get a breakdown, hopefully, of what it entails. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Weeks? Commissioner Weeks, do you have any other final comments?
No additional comments, thank you.
So on my part, I think I would like to see a fee schedule that is more, for lack of a better word, competitive to other project fee schedules or permit fee schedules. Something that really does sit as a incentive to residents. So again, I was jotting down numbers as you were reading them off, but a conditional use permit or a variance permit, I feel that there's still a lot of onus on the resident to generate the application and the materials that are related to it, and the costs to that end should be factored in. And because these are residents, I really do want to see a strong incentive for preserving the character of neighborhoods. So my recommendation would be a more scaled back fee schedule for a Mills Act application. And I don't know what programs exist in terms of giving orientation to property owners, if we do any kind of outreach, or if there's an instructional video that property owners can watch, something that would help launch them on this process. I think it can be really daunting if you're not steeped in architecture to try to generate some of this information. But I just think that the more support we can provide to our residents in maintaining the character of neighborhoods, the better. So, does that give staff something to?
Yes, it does, but just so that staff can summarize, currently if an application were to be submitted, and also for the 9 in place, there is not an application fee in place at this time. So this is a proposal as far as the city's overall fee study to capture the staff time that is spent on applications, city applications. But at this time, as staff understands the comments, that maybe for this application, some additional time should be taken to really look at the breakdown and the cost savings for this application. So staff will take the time to do that, bring this feedback back to the City Council, take a little bit more time with it, and maybe in the next budget cycle to propose something after bringing back some additional research to the Preservation Commission.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll move on to the 4th item on our agenda. These are the Bell Awards and the Martin E. Wile Awards. And so again, staff will provide some background.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. There is not a presentation for this. Essentially, the purpose of item number 4 is an informational item to the Commission, again, on San Gabriel's Bell Awards and Martin E. Wile Awards. This item was something that was brought up during Commission items in past meetings, and questions were raised as to when the program can begin again. And so item 4 serves to just provide this information to the Commission, considering that there are some newer members and it has been a few years since the program has been active. So the intent this evening is just to receive some comments again on the program, and then also whether or not the timing is appropriate to start the program again. But to generally summarize, the San Gabriel Bell Awards was first established in 2005, and it was to recognize local projects that have improved the city economically and architecturally through their design. The Bell Awards recognizes designers, architects, and property owners who have created or constructed exceptional buildings that promote the unique character of the city, both in the residential and the commercial neighborhoods. The Martin E. Wile Awards was added to this program in 2009, and he was a former city preservation architect, and the extra component would be recognizing projects that promoted preservation within the city. The three categories for this particular award is for preservation of residential and commercial properties, also organizations and individuals that contribute to historic preservation, and then again for neighborhood conservation and adaptive reuse. So that was the additional component that was added in 2009. So essentially, it's an award program from the point of nomination to the award itself at a city council meeting. It's about 9 months, so it's an almost a 1-year process from beginning. It involves bringing in professionals and representatives within the community to nominate properties and individuals to be recognized, and then also there are meetings and the projects are reviewed, and then ultimately the awards are presented. So that summarizes the program, and so essentially it's just again to receive comments from the commission and just any thoughts on the program itself.
Thank you very much. So again, I will go through by name. So Commissioner Urena, any questions or comments on this item?
No, not at this time.
All right, Commissioner DeVrent?
Yeah, do you have any examples of current award winners that are in the city right now that maybe would help me, visualize it a little bit? I don't.
Oh, it has been a while. I believe there is a relatively newer commercial plaza on South San Gabriel, just north of Mission. It has some trellis details in the front. I believe it's a variation between a one-story. I don't have the specific address. I apologize. I should have provided some examples. But that would be an example. But it has been almost 10 years since the program has been active.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so it is active now. It's just that nothing has been. It's not something that has to be re-engaged, or it's just say you would just have to be more. I guess we'd be more proactive in getting more applications for that at this time. That's what you're. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner DeVrent. Commissioner Maharo, any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. You stated that as part of the process, relatively a 9-month process, and it would require meetings. Were you referring to meetings like before commissions, with council?
No, there would be more informal meetings that are not broadcasted, for example, like commission meetings, but it's essentially a review panel. In the past, it was comprised of the city architect, for example, or maybe a preservation architect, or just a professional in the category that the project is nominated in.
And anyone can nominate?
That's correct. Anybody in the community. So if this program was to begin, there would be advertisement to make sure that the community at large was aware that nominations were open for any property to be considered.
And landscaping is one of the categories. Is that correct?
Landscaping.
It's remodel, landscaping, commercial, single, and multifamily residential.
That looks to be the case. Yes.
That's exciting.
Cultural landscapes.
Cultural
we can
landscapes.
put
No,
that
really,
in.
because there's so much going on now where we're getting rid of our grass and trying to preserve water. And I think this is a great program. I think we need to revive this.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Morado. Commissioner Weeks, any questions or comments?
No comments on this, thank you.
A couple examples that I know of are the Jeff's signs, so the rehabilitation of goodies.
Mm.
And so the maintaining of that sign, but repurposing it for Jeff's Sporting Good. I know that Studio Physique was nominated, the little athletic training, personal trainer across from Washington School. I believe that used to be, I get mixed up in the order, but I think like a little Five and Dime store or market that used to be on that corner, and so the repurposing there for the studio. So it's examples like that where you're seeing that adaptive reuse. I personally would really like to see this program come back. I think there are individuals that merit some recognition. Martin Wile, in addition to being the preservation architect for San Gabriel, also was the founder of the Modern Committee, ModCom for LA Conservancy, and really spoke for post-World War II development, which San Gabriel is very rich in. So for that reason, I think that there's good reason to keep his work and memory going. Based on a timeline, that would mean that we would be starting to do this process really in the summer. If we wanted to, I think it would be appropriate to announce awards during the month of May, which is National Preservation Month. And so lining it up on that timeline, bringing a little bit more attention to preservation in San Gabriel, I think would be quite good. I think it also gives us opportunity to promote to developers and to people who are doing work. I'm thinking of the Playhouse and the painting that's going to be taking place there. It'd be nice to be able to bring attention the work that's been done in the arcade. Even, for example, the Blossom Market. I think that would be a really nice example of an adaptive reuse, taking the Masonic Lodge and turning it into a really great food hall for San Gabriel. I think in general, it's a nice opportunity for our commission to promote what's happening in the city, to bring more attention. There's wonderful opportunities. We spend a lot of time, I think, talking about residential properties, but I think our commercial and legacy businesses deserve some love too. So it would be really nice to bring attention there. So I'm also very much in favor of seeing this program come back, and I would be delighted if we could make progress for 2023 during the month of May. Was there any public comment on this item?
No public comment, Chair.
All right, so it is now 7:18, and I will close public comment on this item. Are there any last comments from commissioners about this? All right, so we'll go on to item number 5, which is staff items.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. For this one, just to make it brief, as an update to the city's historic resource survey, the city has retained the services of ARG, again, Architectural Historic Group, the firm that worked on the city's context statement to continue their work with the survey. So they have been brought on board, and at a future meeting date, relatively within the next few months, there is going to be a kickoff. But in the meantime, to start the process, similar to the context statement, ARG has put together a public comment form for the public, and it's available on the website right now as well, to identify any building or site or area or neighborhood that they should be focusing on specifically. So since we are in person now, staff would like to pass the form, and there are extra copies for anybody in the community who, has a preference for a hard copy, or again, otherwise, if not, it is available on the city's website for downloading, and essentially it's just to identify any properties or areas that maybe ARG should give extra attention to as part of their survey and to take into consideration. In the meantime, they are working on research, just looking through permit records and history records, and also it's helpful that they worked on the context statement as well, so they do already have a head start on that, and they've had conversations and outreach with the stakeholders in the city, so so they do have a little bit head start on the work. But community feedback is very important to this project and to this process, so any comment is welcome. And that's it for staff
For staff.
items.
Has there been any further information? This is not related, well, my first question with ARG, does that mean all of the work that was done reaching out to the community in terms of identifying buildings, that's all part of the repository that they're working from now?
No, they're still taking
Taking
any
more.
suggestions.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that is still open up until I mean, they're still putting together the list, so up until the point of even the meeting before the commission.
But maybe to be more clear, we don't need to resend materials that we've already sent.
That
They
is
have- okay.
correct. Yes.
No duplication. Are there any other questions from the commissioners about the historic inventory? No? Is this an appropriate time to ask about other projects, like the certified local government? If there's any update there?
Yes. So the city's preservation architect, Jen Mermiliad, she has been actively been in contact with the state, and so the application has made a step forward, going from the preservation office and now is with the National Park Service. But now that the application is at that point, some additional items within the city's ordinance has been identified that may have to be addressed. So Jennifer is working with them to identify what those potential amendments may be. Essentially, if the city is deemed to be a certified local government, the city's preservation ordinance is uploaded to the state's website to recognize that it is consistent with what qualifies as a certified local government. But in the meantime, they've identified a few items that may potentially need to be addressed in the ordinance. And so Jennifer is actively working with them on that. The hopes is that potentially maybe on the June 8th meeting, or if not, another special meeting, we can come back with more information on that. So it has made a step forward, but there's a little bit of a pause on the application again.
Okay, I realize it is truly, I think, the slowest creeping application, quite possibly. But just as a thought, coming back in some ways to fees, I know that there are grants that are available once you have achieved certified local government, and it might be nice to think of activating some of those grants to manage Mills Act applications, whether it's outreach, support, offsetting staff hours. That might be a really nice way, I think, to celebrate certified local government status and to also maybe incentivize preservation citywide. Any other questions on the staff item? All right, so that brings us to commissioner comments and conference meeting reports. Item 6 on the agenda. Each commissioner may address the commission on matters of general information and or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and or meetings that they have attended. So again, I'll go through by name. Commissioner Urena?
No, I don't have any questions, concerns, or anything to report at this time.
All right, thank you. Commissioner DeVrent?
No comments or anything to report on at this time.
All right. Vice Chair Maharo?
Yes. We met as part of the committee for the historical, for the
Land acknowledgement?
Yes, land acknowledgement statement, sorry. We met with Chief Salas, and it was a wonderful, very informal meeting, but I want to share with you that it was very inspiring, and there's so much. We are so fortunate, really, to be on this commission and to be in this city, because there's such rich history here. He basically gave us told stories, talked about locations, walking distance from where we are now, and pointed out buildings. And these were families that were prominent or that contributed somehow to the city. And over time, we've lost that. You never hear of it. It's not mentioned, and it really, really needs to be preserved, and it really needs to be shared. And I sit here thinking, wow, we could, we've mentioned it before. We've mentioned in the past. We've mentioned walking tours in the past and identifying landmarks and so forth, but we haven't acted on it. And I hope that we can, at one point, really move on that. I would love for all of us to be able to meet with the chief and hear that, and see and bring to life really what, the streets we pass every day, the houses we pass every day, those that we didn't realize the historical background of some of these locations, or it may not be just an actual location, but an event that took place somewhere. Families that are still, here, that are descendants of those families that are still within our city boundaries. I think it's wonderful to share that, and I think it's exciting. I think it's something that we should really promote, and hopefully at one point we get to that where people come visit our city and they're going to see the same things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maharo. Commissioner Weeks.
No, nothing to report.
All right, well, I would echo, it's truly been some of the most delightful hours being part of the land acknowledgement statement and getting to hear from both Chief Salas and Chief Morales in terms of the persistence and resilience of the First Peoples of San Gabriel. And like Vice Chair Maharo, I think there's a great deal of work to do to move our recognition of these families from the mission and the mission period all the way through the history of the city, because they really have had roots and legacy from before the mission to the present. And so it's been exciting to learn more about the particular places that we do drive by and don't recognize and know, and the idea that our commission can play a role in helping speak to and mark those spaces is really, really wonderful. So we are still working towards finding the right verbiage and the right content to express in the land acknowledgement statement, but that is a committee that is moving forward, and we hope that with the chief's blessings, we'll be bringing something to the HERE Commission and this commission for consideration. The other thing that I would report is that there are all sorts of free events that are taking place through the California Historical Society. They have all sorts of wonderful lunchtime topics where you can sort of zoom in and learn about the history statewide. Some have more local relevance than others, but I think all are really wonderfully beneficial in terms of thinking through sort of the through lines and threads of California history. Similarly, the California Preservation Foundation is also doing a number of free events, and they have ongoing webinars. So if you want to learn or take advantage of some of those educational pieces, they're really quite wonderful. And then just to call attention to the fact that the San Gabriel Historical Association is finally meeting in person again. So they're having their first in-person meeting on Monday, the 16th. So this on the other side of this weekend. And it is, again, sort of thinking of restarting the Martin E. Wile and the Bell Awards. There are individuals who have spent their lives trying to speak for historic places in San Gabriel, and they have not given up. COVID did not beat them back, and I'm really glad that they're back meeting in person. Typically, they do a dinner, which is a fundraiser from a local restaurant, and have a speaker. And I will be their speaker on Monday. They wanted to hear what our commission has been doing, and so I'll be sharing an update with them. But again, just to sort of have them on your radar, typically their pattern has been to do a larger fundraiser in August. And it really is, when it comes to trying to find the material evidence of the history of San Gabriel, we have them to thank for being a tremendous repository at the museum and the Hayes House. And so to partner with them, I think, is wonderful. So that is my report. And unless there's anything further, I think we're on. Yes, Vice Chair.
Time and location of that meeting?
Oh, that's a really good thing to include, wouldn't it be? It's over at the Grapevine at 6 o'clock. I believe that they have their website up and running. The current president, Pam Petievich, is largely responsible for collecting the RSVPs. So if you're interested in attending, letting her know would be helpful. That way they make sure they have enough dinner for everybody. But at any rate, anyone is always welcome to come and listen to their program, which begins around 7. And I know they would welcome donations, period, but also just participation from the community. They would be really glad to see people at their meeting. Thank you. Yeah. So with that, we'll move to item 7, which is adjourning the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission. It is now 7:31, and we'll adjourn to the regular meeting of the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission on June 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Happily, finally, in person at City Hall. And I look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Xenia, that's Monday.
Monday, yes.
Diana and I are already confirmed, so
Oh, good,
we'll see you
great.
there.